this special energy subcommittee of special people. Just wanted to be on that chat.
You got someone you know?
That's right. It's the end of the night, man. Let's see, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members, House Bill 2205 is an incredibly important piece of legislation and policy consideration for the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's a forward-thinking bill that has many elements that you may like, some that you may not agree with, but nonetheless, it's a good starting point that has promoted discussion on both fronts. Now, people have asked me why I'm carrying this bill. I've been both called brave, maybe crazy for carrying this bill, but I'm neither. I'm pragmatic. This bill lays the groundwork to ensure that Virginians maintain a strong economy, a vibrant job sector, and also meeting our carbon emissions goals and finding solutions to reoccurring flooding. That's real. This bill neither endorses nor condemns the clean power plan and concept. This bill doesn't harm coal communities, which the entire state has depended on for decades. This bill is merely a practical solution and a way forward. And here are some of the elements and solutions of this bill. The bill supports the work the General Assembly's Recurrent Flooding Committee and other state commissions have done by providing real revenues for adaptation efforts, also known as the Commonwealth Resiliency Fund. It provides revenues to assist homeowners lower their electricity bills by investing in statewide energy efficiency programs. It funds yet to be funded renewable energy programs, like the solar grant program that we passed last year, and earlier today we talked about Delegate Dugo's Solar Development Authority. It creates a policy vehicle for Virginia to comply to the federal Clean Power Plan. It funds economic development and workforce training assistance in the Southwest, Mr. Chair. And let's talk about a little bit about that. When you look at the bill, if it passed, $20 million goes back to reinvestment in the workforce in Southwest. And as you know, Southwest is a vital part of Virginia, and we must do all we can to help protect the industry and ensure that jobs are in that area. Renewable energies, Mr. Chair and committee members, again, we talk a good game, but we need to fund some of these things that we're talking about. Energy efficiency, one of the biggest arguments against the Clean Power Plan is that it would increase bills to those who least can afford it, low and moderate income homeowners. House Bill 2205 would also generate $60 million annually for statewide energy and efficiency improvements that would be passed on to families. And lastly, flooding in Tidewater, coastal Virginia, we call it. Whether you believe in the science or whether you believe in sea level rise is man-made or not, the reality is that families, businesses, and military and localities are battling with these realities to flooding that is even getting worse over time. As with Delegate Quinn's bill that we just passed, we needed a coordinated effort on state, local, and federal to deal with this growing challenge. How do we do this? Again, we have talked about a plan. We need a plan. We don't have a plan. Some of my friends that are coming up to talk later call it premature. Some of you guys call it premature. But the bottom line is we need a plan. What this bill does, it chooses a different option. It chooses the most cost-effective option. It also chooses the least worst option that we have. It's different from the wait-and-see approach that we keep talking about. It's different from the do-nothing approach that we're doing nothing right now. And it finds solutions, and it goes away from the trend of fighting against the big government approach that we see with some of these bills that are before us and in the other chamber. House Bill 2205 directs Virginia to join the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative by 2016. It divides auction revenues to various areas of Virginia in need of funding solutions. It requires DEQ to submit annual reports to the General Assembly regarding our participation. Mr. Chair and fellow committee members, if we do nothing, the federal government will do so for us. No one, myself included, wants this to happen. EPA has given states until June of 2016 to develop a satisfactory state implementation plan. Virginia has one more year until June of 2017 to develop a state implementation plan if we choose a regional approach. If we don't act in this session, we will be against the clock, and right now we don't have much time to waste. We are on the clock. You probably heard hours of testimony, colleagues, about how the Clean Power Plan affects carbon emissions in different parts of the state. And what we need to do is look to what our other states are doing. Already the Mid-Atlantic states up north have developed the RGGI. By the way, 8 of 9 have joined this, both bipartisan, Republican-led. We're seeing Georgia and other states like Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee create a new, or talk about a new multi-state collaborative. In addition, you see the 14 Midwestern states beginning to meet to start discussions for a regional trading program that we are talking about here. Mr. Chair, fellow committee members, we cannot be caught flat-footed. We have the opportunity to begin moving forward in the direction of a regional approach. I'm not saying my bill is a perfect bill, but it gives us discussion points, and as you know, Mr. Chair, we work to find solutions. There are a number of folks here to speak on behalf of this bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Those in favor, please come up now. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, long night. My name is DeJuan Robinson with Chesapeake Climate Action Network. I support the bill. The reason why I support the bill, and I will try to be brief, but there's a couple important points. One is that right now, Delegate Villanueva mentioned it very well. There's certainly a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the Clean Power Plan. And that uncertainty has led to action on a number of fronts. The other body is considering a bill to freeze rates in anticipation of what the Clean Power Plan impact is going to be for Virginia. And we've heard some discussion today on the impact of rates for Virginians. And I just wanted to point that out, that if rate impact is really important, which I agree is particularly important to a lot of communities and the communities that you represent. I'd like to point out that HB 2205 is the perfect solution if rates is a consideration. Running right now, there are a lot of projections, there's a lot of uncertainty about what the Clean Power Plan is going to cost for Virginia, but there is certainty in the RGGI program. Since 2008, in the 9 RGGI states, electricity rates have actually dropped 8%, whereas electricity prices on the whole in the nation has increased 6%. So once again, if rates is a consideration, the market-based approach of the RGGI program has proven.
What program?
The RGGI program. It says a market-based solution has proven to reduce rates 8% in those states, with the rest of the nation 6% increase. And this has actually led the Washington Post to editorialize that these rate reductions and RGGI as a method to get those rate reductions is the smart way for Virginia to be able to comply with the program. Delegate Villanueva has gone through the great benefits of the program and how the auction revenues are allocated, much for energy efficiency, which can help low-income homeowners to be able to lower their bills, in addition to the rate decreases that you will get from a large market-based approach like RGGI. So I think that it's a great bill. I commend Delegate Villanueva for carrying it, and I support it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I should say good evening, but I think it's good night at this point. My name is Dr. Samantha Adut. I'm a pediatrician in Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm here tonight to represent the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics in our support of House Bill 2205. This bill introduces vital protection for children from the impacts of rising temperatures, worsening storms, and rising sea levels. It's easy to understand how vaccines and car seats protect children, and why being unvaccinated or riding unrestrained puts kids at risk. But it's a lot harder to wrap our minds around the risks that carbon pollution presents to kids. And to better understand these risks, I'd like to examine what happened to the children in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005. After Katrina hit Louisiana and the city of New Orleans flooded, greater than 5,000 children were separated from their families. Over 34,000 calls were made to a special hotline established by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and the last missing child was reunited with her family after 6 months. Between 200 and 300,000 children were evacuated and relocated temporarily or permanently, and one of these children is a patient in my practice. Worsening storms are not the only impact of carbon pollution on children. Rising global temperature is making children more vulnerable to heat illness, particularly infants and our teenage athletes. Worsening respiratory and allergic diseases because of a lengthening of pollen season and rising ozone associated with greater heat. And changes in patterns of some climate-sensitive infections, such as northern expansion of Lyme disease range. So our children deserve our action to protect their health, their safety, and their security. This bill is really an insurance plan for the long and hazardous road that climate change presents to our children and families. We should not hold our kids in our laps for this journey, hoping that we don't crash. Our children in Virginia deserve to be strapped in, and they deserve this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, what group are you?
I'm representing the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Thank you, Chair. Is this an official position?
I'm officially representing them here today, and we submitted a memo in support of this bill to the members of the committee as well as the members of the Senate committee. And I'm happy to have that resubmitted if you think it would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Chelsea Harnish, Virginia Conservation Network. I apologize for not letting you know earlier that we are an umbrella organization of over 125 nonprofit groups that work across the state and Commonwealth on a variety of issues. And our legislative committee has given our formal support of this bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Angela Navarro with the Southern Environmental Law Center. We support this bill and commend Delegate Villanueva for his leadership. Thank you.
Marina Bell, Sierra Club Virginia chapter. We do support this legislation, and I just want to underline a point made previously by one of my colleagues. This is a revenue-generating solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here now on behalf of my children and grandchildren who live in Virginia, because they're going to live with what you all do on carbon and other issues. Virginia faces a couple of major problems, among others, but the coastal flooding issue is severe, it's getting worse, and it will continue to get worse until we can grapple with it. That requires funding. The second, one of the other major problems is we've got to reduce CO2, and whether it's under the CPP or other measures, we know we're going to have to do it. The longer we wait, the more expensive it'll be. This bill, which was very well crafted, came up with a solution to both problems, because by doing RGGI, provides substantial source of funds for combating the problems on the coast, and we will also help reduce CO2 in the cheapest possible way experienced in the RGGI system, which is really quite well matched to Virginia's situation, supports this bill, and I thank the delegate for proposing it.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else wish to speak for or against House Bill 2205?
Mr. Chairman, sorry to close out the meeting. John Russ with it. We are very respectful of the objectives that Delegate Villanueva has, and certainly the things he's trying to address with the revenues are problems that we share in Virginia. We simply don't believe that joining a regional cap and trade organization is going to accomplish the goals that he seeks. And our objective is to address the problems in a way that's meaningful. We don't think this would be meaningful. So we oppose the bill.
Susan Rubin with the electric co-ops. We have to oppose the legislation as well as another regulatory mechanism that's going to raise rates. And for that, and we think we're getting there without being a member of Patron. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Harrison,